Packing for extended travel requires some additional finesse as compared to packing for a shorter trip. Packing light for extended travel is another level of travel packing entirely. Today's episode is all about long-term travel packing essentials. I'll share long-term travel pro tips that I've learned in the last 17 years as a career traveler, a few must-have items for long-term travel, and some crucial decisions you need to make before you even start writing out your packing list. It's all about essential tips for travel packing, so your next trip is a breeze, be it a couple of weeks, months, or years. Let's do this. I've been a career traveler since 2007. 12 of those years were full-time travel where everything I owned fit into a bag. For 2 of those years, that bag was carry-on sized. The rest of the time, I've had a home base of sorts, and I've taken trips from 2 weeks to 7 months long. Most of my trips average about 3 months. So I've got lots of tips and advice for how to pack for long-term travel. So why is long-term travel packing difficult? The actual reasons might not be as obvious as you might think. Here are the main challenges we are up against when we're packing for a long-term trip, and some tips for dealing with each challenge. Climate, of course, is the first challenge. If you're on a trip that's going to take you through multiple climates, this means you'll need to have appropriate clothing for each of these climates. And, of course, the colder the place you're visiting, the thicker and heavier the clothing you'll need to bring will be, which will, of course, make traveling ultralight additionally challenging. The best advice I can give you if you're packing for a multi-climate long-term trip is to embrace layering. Instead of packing bulky clothing and coats that can only be worn in cold climates, consider layering tank tops and t-shirts and base layers and sweaters that can each be worn on their own in warmer places and also in various combinations for colder places. You might also want to buy or borrow some of the heavier duty layers at your destination if you're planning on visiting a cold climate. I am currently considering a long-term trip that will take me to sunny beaches, winter skiing, and desert camping. Instead of bringing all the ski gear that I would need, I plan to pack lots of layers to get me through the varying temperatures, and then I will rent or borrow my outer layers for skiing. This takes me to the next long-term packing challenge, which is... sports enthusiasts will know what I'm talking about. Packing for a golf trip or scuba diving or climbing or even hiking requires you to bring additional shoes and clothing and gear that makes packing a challenge. But it's not just about sports either. Maybe you're a photography enthusiast and you like to carry lots of lenses, or you fly drones, or maybe you like watercolor painting, or you're a crochet maven and you need lots of needles and yarn. No matter what it is, it takes up space in your luggage. Depending on the gear you need and how specialized it is, you might just have to pack it carefully into your luggage, or check it separately and pay the extra fee, or even ship it separately. In other cases, depending on where you're going, you may be able to acquire the things you need at your destination, of course dependent on the activity and the gear, and then you can sell it before you leave. Culture is another thing to consider when packing for a long-term trip. Depending on the place you're visiting, you may need to have special clothing that covers your head or shoulders, or long pants to remain modest but still stay cool in hot weather. Multifunctional items like scarves are great to adhere to requirements like covering your head or shoulders, while also being fashionable and functional in a variety of ways. And, of course, the more multifunctional your travel gear is, the better suited it is for long-term travel. In a recent episode, I mentioned dressing for cultural norms and how it's necessary to remove your shoes at the entrances to temples and even places of business in certain countries. In these scenarios, it's preferable to not have super expensive shoes because they may walk away without you. But a viewer commented with a very clever tip to carry a shoe bag, like this one, inside of your day pack. You can put your shoes inside this bag, and you can keep it in your day pack without anything getting dirty, and then you can bring your shoes inside with you, thus keeping your stuff a little more secure. The last, but far from the least, challenge to packing for long-term travel is toiletries. Specifically, making sure you have enough of what you need to get you through the places you're visiting, especially if you can't buy suitable replacements or refills along the way. This is a much bigger challenge if you're traveling with carry-on luggage only, due to reduced luggage space, as well as having to comply with airport security liquid restrictions. I address this in much more detail in my episode about TSA, liquid hacks, and solid toiletries. In terms of travel-friendly toiletries, I am excited to announce Proven Skincare as the sponsor of today's video. I love what Proven Skincare offers for a few reasons. First, it helps you ditch the 10-step skincare routine. I had facial cleansers and exfoliators and masks and toners and moisturizers and eye creams and serums and more. That is a lot of toiletries to travel with. Proven Skincare solves the problem with a simple 3-step regimen. The cleanser is a cleanser, toner, and exfoliator all in one. The day moisturizer is a double-duty moisturizer and sunscreen. And the night cream is a serum and moisturizer together. So, with these 3 carry-on travel-friendly steps, I can do away with everything else. But here's what really blew my mind with Proven Skincare. It's totally customized for you. You take an online skin quiz based on 47 factors like your skin concerns, your heritage, history, your environment, and the season, and even your lifestyle, like how much screen time you do in a day, which, spoiler alert, for me, is a lot. What I learned from doing this quiz is that there are a lot of things that I would like my skincare routine to address, and most products only target 1 or 2 of these issues at a time. With Proven Skincare, there's way less trial and error. They use complementary ingredients to target multiple issues at once based on my skin's specific needs. A little bit goes a long way. My skin is responding nicely to the new routine, and the simplicity of the 3-step system saves me time. It's only been a few weeks, but my skin is already feeling smoother and brighter. Although it did take me a while to wrap my head around the price. Once I considered how much money I was spending on various targeted skincare steps and products, some of which worked better than others, and none of which was customized for me, I now see the value in Proven Skincare, and I plan to continue my subscription to see more improvements along the way. If you want to see what it's all about, go to tryprovenskin.com/Nora and use my promo code Nora Dunn to get 50% off your first order. I'll include the special link and discount code in the description box, as well as the first comment, so check it out. Now that we've addressed some of the challenges with long-term travel packing, here are 2 critical considerations that will completely change how you pack for your long-term trip. First, your choice of luggage, or rather luggage size, is everything. I feel like this topic needs to be an entire video unto itself, and if you're interested in me diving deep on the pros and cons of carry-on versus checked luggage, please let me know in the comments. When it comes to long-term travel packing specifically, there are a few things to consider when deciding between checked luggage and carry-on luggage. First of all, how much are you planning to move around? If you're spending a few weeks at each destination, it's entirely manageable to have checked luggage. You pack your stuff up, you go straight to the next place, you unpack, and all is well. This comes with the advantages like being able to bring more comforts of home with you, and if you're traveling through multiple climates, especially cold weather scenarios, it's easier to have everything you need and a little more variety as well. If instead you're doing a trip where you're moving every few days, first of all, not only do I think that that's an unsustainable pace of travel in the long term, but that's another matter, but also you will find that the act of having to pack and unpack and schlep a big heavy bag around is going to get old real fast. This is where traveling with carry-on luggage shines. Another consideration that makes it easier to travel with carry-on luggage would be whether or not you can get what you need at your destination. If, for example, you're visiting a city in a country where thrift shops are a thing, you can easily and inexpensively get a few additional clothing items to use while you're there, and you can even donate it back to the thrift shop before you leave. The same goes for equipment or gear that you might want to use at your destination, but don't want to pack and carry with you. The other critical consideration that will entirely dictate your long-term packing strategy is whether you want to bring expensive stuff or replaceable stuff. Both options have pros and cons. Personally, I now tend to travel with expensive things, but I didn't always, and we'll get to that in a second. When it comes to clothing and gear, I believe in many cases you get what you pay for, and I like to invest in well-designed pieces that are sustainably made and super functional as well as fashionable. It can also last longer or come with a lifetime warranty, which gets you a better cost per use overall that can help you justify the initial higher cost of buying that thing to begin with. But it's not ideal to have a bunch of expensive things with you. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty hard on my stuff when I travel. And travel inherently increases our risk of losing or damaging stuff or even having it stolen. A stain or a rip happens way too easily. And obviously the more expensive your stuff is, the more painful that can be. I didn't always travel with expensive things. After my initial foray into full-time travel, where I invested a bunch of money into travel clothing and gear that I thought I needed, but that just was not my style, I then started systematically replacing it with stuff that I bought on the road along the way. This was super fun and really rewarding. As I started replacing stuff in my luggage, my long-term travel entourage, which was pretty much everything I owned, became functional souvenirs of the places that I'd been to. I didn't spend a lot of money on most of the stuff, which also helped me to keep some variety in my travel wardrobe. If a cheap shirt wore out, It was no big deal because it probably meant I had worn it enough that I was sick of it anyway, and I could replace it with something from my current destination. Some travelers, regardless of whether they're traveling long-term or short-term, will intentionally pack replaceable items. That way, they have what they need until they can find a suitable replacement along the way. I'll wrap up with a couple of things to remember in developing your own long-term travel packing strategy. First of all, accept the fact that you're not going to get it right from the beginning. Being able to anticipate everything that you'll need while traveling long-term if you don't have long-term travel experience, and frankly, even if you do, is really difficult. So cut yourself some slack and just acknowledge that you're probably going to make some bad packing decisions initially, and that this is part of the process. Assuming you do make some bad decisions and bring some things that you just don't want to continue to take with you, remember that you can ship it home. When I started traveling full-time, I took along so many ridiculous things, not the least of which was like a climbing harness and shoes and other items I can't even admit to. After realizing how ridiculous some of my decisions were, I stuck the offending items into a box and I shipped it back to a friend in Toronto who could keep it safe for me until I returned. Conversely, if you go the other way and you get out there and realize that you didn't take some things that you would have liked to have, most of the time you can buy what you need on the road, either locally or by ordering online. Have you taken a long-term travel trip? How long was it? Leave a comment with your longest trip, how long it was, and where you went. I'd love to learn more about your travel experience, as well as your aspirations. I'm Nora Dunn, aka the Professional Hobo, and I'll catch you next time.